At this time, I will go ahead and recognize myself for 5 minutes and try not to duplicate anything else, because one of the things we're hoping that is going to be done by the DOJ is cut out a lot of the duplication that has occurred over the years. And I'm probably more than most recognize the difficulties this DOJ will have because of what has gone on before us. I've been down on the Texas-Mexico border all hours, many nights, and our Border Patrol open up and talk a bit in the middle of the night. And what I've seen over and over in talking to them is, as was shared one night, I was asked, do you know what the drug cartels call Homeland Security? Know what? They call us logistics, like the commercial. The drug cartels say all we have to do is get our future employees across the border, and then Homeland Security ships them wherever we want them to go. I've been there numerous times when, as the officers go through their questions, they add a question that many of them want to know: how much did you pay the gangs, the drug cartels, to get here? And it was often $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000. You don't have that money. Where'd you come up with that money? And this was usually in Spanish, and I'd have somebody helping me. But the response would be, oh, we got $1,500, $2,000 from friends in America, $1,000 here, $1,000. Well, what are you doing for the rest of it? They're going to let me work it off when I get to the city where I'm going. They had employees paying the drug cartels to let them be employees for free in cities all over America. So while we're spending millions of dollars through DOJ trying to help local law enforcement, at the same time, we were using Homeland Security money to ship future criminal agents, and some of them in desperate situations, whether it's sex trafficking or drugs. So it seems like some of the money DOJ is now going to be spending is going to be having to help communities deal with what we did to them in recent years. So let me ask you, can you tell a little more about the National Summit on Crime Reduction and Public Safety? How is that going to help these situations?
Well, the upcoming summit, which is being conducted in the auspices of the National Crime Reduction Task Force, created by the Attorney General, is going to bring together a large group of stakeholders, community groups, crime groups, law enforcement, prosecutors from throughout the country. And the idea is to bring them together and talk about different strategies and things they're doing to combat crime in the area, and hopefully sort of share best practice with each other so that each jurisdiction and different group can learn from the other and can combine their knowledge and hopefully create strategies that we can disseminate nationally to fight crime, including the sorts of problems that you've described.
And have you worked personally directly with any law enforcement in states and local governments?
I've had occasion to interact with a number of them. Of course, I've only been on board about 4.5 months, but I've had opportunity to talk to many law enforcement officers, and I can tell you that what we're hearing is across the board is just the breath of fresh air they feel coming from this Attorney General and this administration about getting tough on crime in their jurisdictions and things that they're dealing with.
Yeah. And hopefully not shipping any more people to their locales that they're going to end up having to deal with.
I can tell you that you've got an Attorney General that is absolutely committed to ending illegality at the border and stopping those people there, prosecuting them there, and then sending them back.
And I hope you know you don't have to tell me. I consider Jeff Sessions to be a dear friend and just a wonderful person. Well, one of the things that Mr. Jeffries expressed as a concern, and it's certainly a concern of mine, I know it was a concern of Senator Jeff Sessions, and I'm sure yourself, we do. We send out money, and often over the years it's been so we can put strings on it and dictate local control. Now, I know Attorney General, I was so pleased that he ended some of the consent decrees, which appeared to me to be a takeover of local law enforcement by the feds, or as Mark Levin says, federalizing local law enforcement. Can you tell us any more about that working relationship with communities that have perhaps had problems? Consent decree has been removed. Are we working with them to help them with money to get their systems up and working appropriately as law enforcement?
We are. It is our job, particularly in the grant-making components of the department, to get this money to law enforcement officers and agencies so they can use it to reduce crime, promote public safety, and of course protect the well-being and safety of their officers. We always work with jurisdictions to make sure they're in compliance with whatever grant conditions may exist. It is not our job to deny them funding. It's to make sure that they fulfill the requirements to receive it.
Okay. Well, my time has expired. Going to see, did gentleman from Louisiana or the gentlelady from Alabama have any further questions? All right. Then, Mr. Hanson, we don't always get an opportunity to do this, but you're the sole witness today, and you've had great questions from both sides of the aisle. Sometimes you don't completely respond or think of other things that you might wish to say, maybe to expand on comments that were already made. What would you say is the most important takeaway that this committee should have from this hearing today?
I just want you to know that we're here to work with you, our authorizers in Congress, to combat crime, to promote public safety and protect our law enforcement officers. As you pointed, as has been pointed out in a number of the statements today, sometimes there's duplication in programs, some different programs become outdated and need for flexibility. We're here to work with you and to get your thoughts on the best way forward to, again, pursue those policy priority areas set out by the AG and the President. And I would also say that there's no need or concern about commandeering local law enforcement officers. We're here to work with them as a partner and not to direct them or tell them what to do.
And anything further from prior answers that you wish to expand on or you thought of since that you wanted to add?
Well, I'll just add just a little bit, to my exchange with Congressman Jeffries. The way forward on the Sanctuary City grant funding determination, in accordance with the Attorney General's memo from May 22nd, is just to look at 3 grant programs that were actually identified last year with regard to 1373 compliance. All jurisdictions were placed on notice in FY16 and agreed that compliance with 8 USC 1373 would be a condition of receiving that grant. And so we are simply carrying that policy forward. There's no attempt to commandeer or otherwise deny grant funding, except that as a grant condition, jurisdictions must comply with all applicable federal laws and are on notice that 8 USC 1373 is one of those applicable laws.
Thank you. Of course, one of the concerns that is expressed in local jurisdictions, yeah, we award this grant money and people hear the total amount, whether it's 70 million, whatever it happens to be for a particular program, and yet normally it's not pointed out that salaries usually come out of that amount at DOJ to implement the money that goes to the local jurisdictions. And in a different committee yesterday, we were hearing from part of the Department of Interior that they were running about 25% as administrative costs. And as I pointed out to them, if they were in the private sector, they'd be fired and never be allowed to touch that money again. But being they're in the government, 25% may be deemed not that unreasonable. I think it is. But what do you see the Department of Justice doing to minimize the amount of money necessary to pay for salaries and administrative costs at DOJ so that more can go to the locales that actually need it?
It is a priority of ours to concentrate the resources Congress makes available to us to the law enforcement, state and local law enforcement agencies who are our partners. As such, we try to minimize the overhead, for lack of a better term, that's taken out of those. We do not receive at OJP any direct appropriation for management or administration. Therefore, we do have to take the funding, salaries, and other costs out of the grants. However, we consistently keep that below 8%. And I believe we proposed for FY18 about 7.7 that's drawn across the board from most, but not all of the grant programs. So not even all of the programs we administer do we take that 7.7% drawdown from that.
Our hearing is basically coming to a conclusion, but I want to take a point of personal privilege and point out, I don't know of anybody else in our committee during the years that President Bush was in office and the person he chose as director of the FBI, Robert Mueller, was FBI director, but had numerous exchanges with Director Mueller. He had his 5-year up or out program. For most people that have dealt with federal law enforcement, they know from a local standpoint that it normally takes 5 years for a state and local law enforcement group to feel comfortable with a federal agent as they come in, or they come in and they're in a special agent in charge supervisory position. Often the feeling is, okay, is this going to be one of those guys that takes all our work and runs and does a press conference, or are they going to actually be a partner? 5 years, you know what you got. You know you got partners. And we had incredible, experienced FBI agents all over the country doing phenomenal work. And his 5-year up or out program, when you're a supervisor 5 years, you either got to get out or come to Washington. And so many of them thought, I'm not coming to Washington and being a yes man and a minion. I'd rather stay here. I can make more money. I wish I could stay in the FBI and continue to work even though a lesser salary. And as I think the Wall Street Journal pointed out, we lost thousands and thousands of years of experience in the FBI. As I felt like Director Mueller basically gutted the FBI of so much experience. And if you're looking for a bunch of yes men, then the less experience, the better. But I would just encourage you and our Attorney General, use those assets. Let's build it back from what Director Mueller brought it down to. We got a lot of work to do, and I'm grateful for the people that are still there with the experience, but it's going to make your job harder. So appreciate your being here today. No, it's not fun testifying except for the bonus check you get for coming to. And not everybody in government appreciates sarcasm, but the witness is not receiving any remuneration for testifying.